All right, I'm heading out my door, walking to work, and I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind. Oh, there's a spider web hanging in the pathway. 1 second. Yeah, the spider worked hard for that. Also, I didn't want it in my face. So, I've been thinking a lot about the differences between science fiction, science, and magic in fantasy. So sometimes I've heard it said that, oh, well, magic is just science that you don't understand, or really or that magic is just anything that you don't understand. And I disagree with that because I think it makes for a very fuzzy line between the two. And I think that really the difference between science fiction, science, and magic and fantasy is something that we as humans have a pretty good ability to intuit and figure out when we see it, but it becomes a bit harder to define. So I would like to try and define that a little bit better. It's a gorgeous day, by the way. So here is my definition for magic versus any kind of science fiction, science force. And that is that magic is allowed to care about intent. Whereas science has to be objective and it has to behave consistently regardless of individual intent or even larger intent. So what do I mean by that? Well, as I'm using my phone right now, the brightness keeps adjusting automatically based off of factors built into the phone where, hey, if I walk under the shade, it kind of adjusts for a second. But all of that is based off of consistent programming in the phone itself. My glasses have a tint to them so that when exposed to the sunlight, they get a little bit darker. All of that based on science, right? Well, let's say that I had glasses that automatically darkened to the shade that I wanted them to be, or that automatically darkened to, the shade that allowed me to see what I need to see at the moment. So all of that is intent. Another example that I like to use is with, oh hey, there's my wife. Hi, sweetie. She's awesome. So another example that I like to use is, let's say that you have a fantasy story where there is a healing magic. Let's say it's a pool of healing. And you get down into the pool and it heals you right up. Maybe you regrow a limb or something. Now, that is also using intent because that magic is allowed to know what healing means, what it means to be healthier or better on its own. You couldn't, on the other hand, have a healing radiation in science fiction because, well, how does the radiation know what it means to heal you? Maybe you could have a radiation that promotes cellular regeneration or cellular growth, but just straight up healing, the radiation doesn't know what is healthy and what is not. And now we're at the intersection where I have nearly gotten hit more times than I can count, but I'm pretty sure that we'll be all right. So, you could have in science fiction, say, nanobots that are built with programming that tells them what they should be doing and what constitutes healing. And that's fine because that intent has been programmed in. But overall, I think the point is that with magic, whether it's, oh, hey, Harry, you really need to focus that Accio spell, and you really need to be thinking hard about what it is that you want, or whether it's destiny leading you forward, because, hey, it's not just the intent of the characters, but in a way, even the intent of the world. Boy, it's really noisy at this intersection, isn't it? But believe me, it's worth waiting to cross the crosswalk. Safety first. So with things like destiny and even the forces of the world, yep, okay, that car was not going to hit me. Those also have an impact where, hey, you know what? Things did not behave in a consistent manner. Why? Well, because destiny wanted it so. And destiny seems to have an intent of its own. So, having said all of this, I'd like to get back to a question that was asked on my blog recently, and I wanted to respond to it, asking how I see the difference between colorless magic, or colorless mana in the game Magic the Gathering, versus colored mana in Magic the Gathering. And the difference that I see is that colored mana comes with intent that allows for the casting of certain spells. So the spells are a kind of magic, hence the name, and you know, those spells allow you to do what you want to do, and it is absolutely driven by the player's intent of what they're targeting, what they want to do, and so on. And so there's a lot of choices that they get to make. But the different colors of mana actually have some intent of their own. And this is where we get into the color pie and the color philosophy. You know, what is it that each of the colors wants? You know, green wants wisdom and acceptance. Blue wants perfection. Black wants power. White wants order and peace. Red wants freedom. So you've got the colors that inherently have their own intent, and that intent helps drive what that mana can do. And so let's say that I wanted to cast Giant Growth. Great classic green spell. Well, that green mana, because what I'm casting goes right into the intent that color of mana has, it's going to help me in my casting. It's going to help fill in the gaps that I don't know in casting the spell. Basically, it enhances my ability to do it. Now, I can use other mana with other spells. You know, not everything has to agree with what I want to cast. I can use a mountain as a generic mana when I'm casting a blue spell or a white spell. But that connection to the mana and that connection to the locations that produce that mana, basically, even though those are pieces of land, you know, the land is it's like an entity of itself. You know, if you've ever been in a forest and you feel like, oh man, it feels like the forest is listening. I feel like it's that kind of a feel. I'm almost at work, so I better start wrapping up. So when it comes to colorless mana that you might get from a Sol Ring or stars or a city or something like that, I see that as still energy, still a source of energy that can be used to cast spells, but without any of the intent built in to help drive what you should be able to do with it. I believe that's also why colorless spells tend to be things like artifacts, for example, being probably the most obvious one, where, you know, those artifacts don't have any intent of their own. They are automatons. They are things that are completely, well, I mean, they're more on the science fiction side of the spectrum. So I'm about to walk into work, and yeah, just wanted to, I've been meaning to make this video for a while, finally getting around to it. So if you made it this far with me on my walk to work to talk about it, I appreciate it. And I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll talk to you another time.